You've seen the signs. Prices are spiking, shelves thinning out, but here's what most people still don't realize. The real shortages haven't even started yet. By the time 2025 ends, it won't be about what you want to buy, it'll be about what's even left to buy. Certain everyday grocery items are already slipping off the radar, and once they're gone, there's no quick restock. Not because of panic, because of supply chains breaking in slow motion, right under everyone's nose. In this video, I'm showing you 9 specific grocery items that could become almost impossible to find before the year's over. These aren't exotic foods or luxury brands. They're the things you rely on every week, and the last people to stock up will be the first ones scrambling. And just to be clear, this isn't fear-mongering or hype. We share what's real, what's shifting, and what's coming. If you're seeing local shortages already, drop them in the comments, because the more we share now, the fewer people get blindsided later. Number 1, eggs. It's just eggs until they're gone. And right now, we're not talking about maybe. We're talking about a full-blown, ongoing shortage backed by numbers. Over 40 million laying hens were culled due to bird flu outbreaks across 2024 and into early 2025, crippling the egg supply chain across the U.S. You might have already noticed the signs: limited stock, price hikes, and stores quietly posting per-customer limits. This isn't about panic buying, it's structural. Egg farms can't bounce back overnight. It takes months to raise a new laying flock and even longer to stabilize national supply chains. And eggs aren't just about breakfast. They're in everything: baked goods, pasta, dressings, processed foods, even pet foods. So when egg supply collapses, ripple effects hit multiple shelves at once. During previous shortages, people switched to powdered egg alternatives, but even those vanished quickly. Commercial kitchens, bakeries, and bulk buyers grab them in crates, not cartons. That means the average shopper is already behind by the time they realize something's wrong. And here's the part that always catches people off guard. Eggs are one of the few items that are nearly impossible to replace at home. You can't grow them in a windowsill. You can't make them from pantry ingredients. If you don't have chickens, and 99% of people don't, you're out of luck. What triggers conflict? Scarcity plus necessity. Eggs are affordable protein, shelf-stable for weeks, and culturally essential. Once they're gone, frustration follows fast. Smart prepping here doesn't mean hoarding 20 dozen. It means knowing when to buy, watching restock patterns, and rotating what you store. If you find a decent deal, grab an extra carton and rotate it in. If you've got access to freeze-dried eggs or powdered egg substitute, now's the time to lock it in, because when the next wave of flu hits, shelves won't just be empty, they'll stay that way. Eggs are one of the first items to vanish and one of the hardest to get back. Number 2, beef, ground, and cuts. Beef isn't just another protein in the American diet, it's a staple. Burgers, tacos, stir-fry, roasts, it shows up on plates almost every day. But what most shoppers don't realize is that the U.S. beef industry is in serious trouble. And it's not theory, it's math. The USDA confirmed that U.S. cattle inventory is at its lowest point in over 70 years. That's not just a drop, that's a generational collapse in supply. Years of droughts in Texas and Oklahoma dried up grazing land, and ranchers were forced to sell off their herds early. Now, there aren't enough calves to rebuild fast enough. The pipeline is broken. What does that mean at the store? Shrinking variety, higher prices, and eventually gaps on the shelf. Ground beef, the most affordable and versatile cut, is already seeing double-digit inflation in some states. Steaks and roasts are being pushed into luxury territory. And when major chains start offering blend beef that's part imported or processed filler, you'll know the shortages are no longer behind the scenes. There's also a health code issue. When demand exceeds supply, meat processing speeds up, and that raises the risk of contamination or spoilage. During the early COVID period, meatpacking plants became hotspots for disruption, and we saw the results: bare shelves, meat rationing, and sudden price spikes. Now it's happening again, slower, quieter, and more structural. What causes fights? When something so normal, so foundational, starts vanishing without warning. When that familiar $5 pack of ground beef becomes $9 or just doesn't show up at all. Smart prepping here means diversifying now. Freeze what you can. Look for local sources. Explore alternatives like canned beef, shelf-stable jerky, or beans and grains that extend smaller meat portions. Because beef isn't just food, it's a signal. When it starts disappearing, it means the system behind it is already breaking. Number 3, chocolate and cocoa products. Chocolate might feel like a luxury, something you grab for comfort, not survival. But the reality is, cocoa-based products are quickly shifting from everyday indulgence to high-risk grocery items. And the warning signs are already here. The core issue is simple. Global cocoa production is collapsing. West Africa, which supplies over 60% of the world's cocoa, has been hit with back-to-back climate shocks, extreme heat, flooding, and crop diseases. Yields are down, and farmers can't recover fast enough. That's pushing wholesale cocoa prices to record highs. But it's not just raw cocoa. The entire chocolate pipeline is tightening. Processing facilities are facing labor shortages. Export costs are up. Major chocolate manufacturers like Hershey and Mars have already issued public warnings that prices will keep rising, and in some cases, products may be temporarily pulled to focus on high-margin lines. What does that mean for you? It means your favorite chocolate bar might not just get more expensive, it might disappear entirely, or return with less cocoa content, more filler, and a higher price tag. The same goes for cocoa powder, baking chocolate, and even hot chocolate mixes. They're all getting reformulated quietly, or limited in distribution to reduce cost. We've seen this before. During economic instability or holiday surges, chocolate always runs hot, especially products tied to comfort or gifting. But this time, the shortage isn't about demand, it's about supply collapse. And here's where it gets serious. Chocolate isn't just a treat. In crisis zones, it's high-calorie, long shelf life, and psychologically stabilizing. That small square of sweetness hits harder than people realize, especially for kids or the elderly when food becomes monotonous or rationed. So yes, people will fight over chocolate, not because it's a want, but because it becomes a need. A familiar thing that signals comfort when everything else feels out of control. Smart prepping means grabbing shelf-stable options now, baking cocoa, sealed bars, or freeze-dried treats. Store cool and rotate sparingly. Because when the sweetness disappears, desperation rises fast. Number 4, fresh berries and seasonal produce. Most people assume produce will always be there, just walk into any supermarket and there it is. Strawberries in winter, blueberries in spring, tomatoes year-round. But what most don't realize is how fragile that system actually is. And by the end of 2025, it could start cracking fast. Here's why. The U.S. relies heavily on imported produce, especially from Mexico, Central America, and Canada. But ongoing labor shortages, stricter immigration enforcement, and weather disruptions have already started choking supply. In California, where much of America's domestic fruit comes from, prolonged drought followed by flash flooding has created unstable growing cycles. Farms can't plant or harvest consistently, and damaged soil is reducing yields across the board. Meanwhile, berries, which are highly perishable and labor-intensive, are getting hit hardest. A single week of extreme heat or transportation delays can wipe out entire shipments, and in 2025 we're seeing both happen more often. The result? Higher prices, lower quality, and random gaps in stock that hit suddenly. You walk in expecting fresh raspberries, and they're just not there, or they've doubled in price, with half the shelf life. What triggers conflict? That growing realization that fresh is becoming unpredictable. And when families can't find basic produce for their kids, tensions rise. Smart prepping doesn't mean trying to store fresh berries forever. It means adjusting early. Freeze what you can, stock up on frozen blends. Try dried fruits, canned fruit packed in juice, or shelf-stable smoothie powders. Because when the trucks slow down and the farms can't keep up, the first thing to disappear is the freshness we all take for granted. Number 5, nuts and nut butter, especially almonds, peanut butter. They seem like shelf-stable staples, just toss a jar in the pantry and forget about it. But nuts, especially almonds and peanuts, are quietly becoming some of the most fragile items in the grocery supply chain. Let's start with almonds. Over 80% of the world's almonds come from California. And right now, that region is battling long-term drought, groundwater restrictions, and rising pollination costs. Farmers are pulling out orchards because they can't afford to keep them alive. That means less supply and higher prices for everything from raw almonds to almond butter. Peanuts aren't doing much better. Pest cycles and fungal diseases are hitting southern U.S. peanut crops, especially in Georgia and Alabama. Add in rising transport costs, and you've got a recipe for fewer jars of peanut butter showing up, especially the popular national brands. The danger here is twofold. First, these are high-calorie, high-protein foods that don't require refrigeration. In an emergency, they're priceless. Second, they're used across multiple categories: snack bars, cereals, protein powders, and baked goods. When nut supply drops, entire sections of the store get affected. So why do fights break out? Because parents rely on peanut butter. Hikers, diabetics, low-income shoppers, everyone grabs it. And when shelf space shrinks, so does patience. Prepping smart means stocking a few extra jars now. The natural oils keep for over a year if stored cool. Vacuum-sealed snack packs are great for go bags. And if you see almond butter on clearance, don't walk past it, because when protein gets scarce, a simple spoonful of nut butter becomes survival fuel. Number 6. Powdered milk and infant formula. This one already made headlines, but most people think the crisis is over. It's not. The infant formula shortage that rocked the US in 2022 left behind a fragile supply chain that still hasn't fully recovered. And now, in 2025, we're seeing the cracks widen again. Major producers like Abbott and Reckitt are still playing catch-up. Small disruptions, labor delays, contamination recalls, or shipping slowdowns can wipe out regional supply overnight. And powdered milk? That's tied directly to the same global dairy market under pressure from droughts, feed costs, and export restrictions. But here's what people forget. It's not just parents buying formula. Emergency shelters, food banks, hospitals, and even survival preppers are stocking it too, because in any crisis, feeding infants safely becomes top priority. That demand adds stress to an already strained system. Meanwhile, powdered milk is gaining popularity in bulk prepping circles. It stores well, blends easily, and can substitute in recipes when fresh milk disappears, making it a quiet target for early shoppers during emergencies. So what causes chaos? It's the speed at which these shelves empty. One social media post about a regional shortage, and suddenly formula aisles are bare coast to coast. And for families with newborns, that's not inconvenience, that's panic. Prepping smart means buying ahead if you rely on these products. If not, having a small stash of powdered milk still adds resilience to your pantry. Use it in baking, coffee, or just as backup nutrition. Because when the shelves go empty, parents don't wait, they fight. And the formula fight comes fast. Number 7. Bread and cereal-grade flour. Walk into any store and you'll find an entire aisle dedicated to bread bagels, buns, loaves, wraps. It looks endless until it's not. And that's exactly where we're headed. Because behind every slice of bread is a fragile chain of crops, mills, and packaging that's now under serious pressure. Let's start with the grain itself. Major wheat-producing regions in the US, Midwest, have been hit with extreme flooding and drought cycles back to back. Yields are down, and what is harvested is often diverted to export contracts or long-term storage. That means less high-quality flour for domestic use. But that's just part of the problem. Bread depends on a steady flow of packaging materials, especially plastic wrap and cardboard, both of which are facing cost spikes and raw material shortages. Smaller bakeries are scaling back, and even big brands are reducing product lines to manage costs. Meanwhile, flour, especially unbleached, all-purpose, or bread flour, is getting harder to find in bulk. Mills are prioritizing commercial buyers over retail stores, and specialty flours like rye or oat have already vanished from some chains. So why does this matter? Bread is comfort, it's tradition, it's shelf-stable, filling, and easy to stretch. When people see it disappearing, they panic not because it's fancy, but because it's familiar. Prepping here means two things. First, keep extra flour in airtight containers it stores for months if kept cool and dry. Second, learn how to make basic bread at home. Just one bag of flour can keep a family fed when stores run out. Because when the trucks stop and the power flickers, it won't be the fancy foods people miss, it'll be the bread. Number 8, canned pet food. When shelves go bare, most people rush to stock up on food for themselves. But what about the pets? That's where canned pet food becomes a surprise trigger for chaos, because when shortages hit, these aisles don't just empty, they vanish. Here's what's going on. Most canned pet food relies on aluminum tins, imported meat byproducts, and a surprisingly global supply chain, and all three are breaking down. The same aluminum used in energy drinks and canned soup is in limited supply, and food producers prioritize human products first. That means pet food lines get cut, delayed, or canceled entirely. On top of that, meat rendering plants, the places that process byproducts for pet food, are facing labor shortages and rising energy costs. Brands can't keep up, especially with inflation squeezing the middle tier of the market. What's left? Either high-end boutique cans or low-end mystery meat, and not much in between. And here's where it gets real. During previous shortages, like in early 2022 and again in 2024, many pet owners reported having to ration food, switch brands abruptly, or feed pets items not meant for long-term use like human tuna or boiled rice. That's risky, especially for older pets or those with special diets. So why do people fight? Because for many, pets are family, and when their food disappears, it's not just frustrating, it's emotional. Smart prepping means grabbing extra cans now, especially your pet's preferred type. Rotate every few months and check expiration dates. Even a 1-month buffer can make all the difference when delivery trucks stop rolling. Because in a crisis, the last thing you want is to stare into your dog's eyes and realize there's nothing left in the bowl. Number 9. Sugar and sweeteners. Sugar seems like one of those things that'll always be around. It's in everything: coffee, cereal, sauces, snacks. But as we get closer to 2025's end, sugar is shaping up to be one of the quietest yet most widespread shortages in the grocery world. Here's why. The U.S. imports a massive portion of its refined sugar from countries like Mexico, Canada, and Brazil. But with trade tensions rising, new tariffs are being proposed, some as high as 40%. That instantly makes imported sugar more expensive and far less available. And when import contracts dry up, domestic supply simply can't cover the gap. Then there's climate pressure. Sugarcane and sugar beet harvests have been hit by flooding, drought, and crop diseases, especially in southern U.S. regions like Louisiana. That's cutting yield and creating delays across processing plants that refine raw sugar into food-grade product. And this isn't just about table sugar. The shortage affects every aisle: sauces, frozen meals, canned fruit, sports drinks, even medicine. Sweeteners like high-fructose corn syrup and stevia blends are also seeing supply chain stress, as global demand outpaces production and packaging materials become scarce. So what happens? Quiet shrinkflation. Smaller pack sizes, price hikes that feel random, and when panic hits, especially around holidays, people start grabbing sugar like it's gold. The tension comes from routine. People bake with it, sweeten coffee with it, rely on it to preserve fruit, make energy bars, or mix with oatmeal. When it's gone, things feel unstable fast. Prepping here is simple but smart. Grab a few sealed bags of white or brown sugar, store in airtight bins, and keep backup alternatives like honey or maple syrup. These items last years and become instant barter gold when sweetness disappears. You've just seen 9 everyday grocery items that most people still take for granted, but by the time 2025 ends, they could be gone. Not because of panic, not because of hoarding, but because the systems behind them, the farms, the trucks, the factories are already cracking. And that's what makes these items so dangerous. They vanish slowly, then all at once. One day the shelf's full, the next, it's half-stocked, then it's empty with no sign of return. But here's the difference. You know now. You've seen the patterns, the causes, the warning signs. That's the kind of edge that keeps you ahead while others scramble. This channel isn't about panic. It's about seeing around corners, spotting the small shifts before they become big problems. And if that's the kind of mindset you want to build, then don't just scroll past. Hit subscribe right now. Because this isn't just about groceries, it's about survival strategy. Drop a comment. Which of these have you already noticed disappearing? Or better yet, which one are you grabbing on your next store run? And if this video made you rethink your next grocery list, give it a like so the algorithm knows more people need to hear this kind of straight-up prep talk. Because the shelves are speaking, and by the time the crowd listens, it's already too late.